Let's try and get some more insights from neuroscience about consumer decisions. Remember, when we talk about neuroscience, we're looking at the gut feelings people have for both benefits and for costs, and then the cognitive ability to put those gut feelings together with other information. Now let's look at the choice between eating a donut and an apple. Both a donut and an apple give you a gut feeling of happiness, and both of them cost you money. And so we can compare the gut feelings of donuts and apples and look at the choice between the two goods. Additionally, there's other information we know about donuts and apples. Apples are a healthier thing to eat than donuts are. So when making this choice, we should combine all of those things, our gut feelings and the cognitive information that we have. Suppose we didn't. Suppose we just look at gut feelings. Well, in this example here, we're looking at the consumption of donuts and apples. And this is the gut feeling marginal utility per dollar of eating donuts. And this is the gut feeling and cognitive marginal utility per dollar of eating apples. And remember, we're assuming that donuts are not as healthy as apples. And so there's going to be a difference when we include the cognitive decision-making process when we look at donuts. So first, let's take that part out. Let's just look at gut feeling for donuts. And if we use the equimarginal rule, we would consume at point A and point B, where the marginal utility per dollar is 12 for both donuts and for apples. Now suppose we include the fact that some people think donuts might be an unhealthy food. We include this cognitive portion of our decision-making process. That's going to lower the marginal utility per dollar of donuts under this light green line. If that's the case, then if we continue consuming 9 donuts and 1 apple, then our marginal utility per dollar will not be equalized anymore. The marginal utility per dollar of donuts is only going to be 2. So we have to shift away from eating donuts up to point E. We shift towards eating more apples down to point D, where the marginal utility per dollar is equalized at 7 across the two goods. So if we exclude the cognitive decision-making process from eating donuts, we would eat more donuts. The more we think about it, the fewer donuts we end up eating. We can also look at something called present bias, meaning should we spend now or should we spend later? And the spending later is savings. Spending now versus savings is a choice that we make. So we look at consumption now and savings and the marginal utility per dollar of each one. And we can look at the marginal utility per dollar of future spending or savings right now with present bias. So if we compare marginal utilities per dollars across these two different goods, consumption now or savings, we would get equimarginal rule putting us at points A and point B, with $19 spent on current consumption and $1 saved, and 14 utils per dollar for each good. Now suppose we counteract the present bias and we understand that consumption in the future is a good thing. This would mean that the marginal utility per dollar would be higher for savings. If that's the case, then we no longer have equimarginal between the two goods, current consumption and future consumption. If we stay at points A and B, or in other words, at 19 units of current consumption and 1 unit of savings, then we would have 38 utils per dollar for savings and only 14 utils per dollar for consumption. So we have to adjust away. We end up spending less on current consumption and saving more to points E and D, where our utils will be 26 utils per dollar across both goods. So if we can counteract our present bias, we tend to see less current spending and more savings. So people who are able to think into the future better tend to save more. How does present bias show up in everyday behavior? Well, let's look at credit cards. What do credit cards do? Credit cards allow you to get the current benefits right now, and the good feelings and the good gut feelings right now, and put the costs off to the future. So if you have the present bias, then you will spend more because you have credit cards. And this temporal mismatch between benefits and costs is made worse by the use of credit cards. What about smoking? Well, smoking, the act of smoking, has a mismatch of temporal costs and benefits. The benefits are right now. You have a good feeling from the nicotine. The cost of future health problems are in the future. So if you're a person that has a stronger present bias, then you're more likely to smoke than a person without a strong present bias.